So here we are this morning on the number 3, January 13th, 2023. And our guest this morning is Caroline Chang. I want to read a little bit about Caroline before we bring her on, because I want you to just be prepared to listen and be enlightened. She is the founder of the Kyle Foundation, that's Keep Your Light Expanding. And she's the producer and host of Awake to Oneness Radio for the last 8 years. That's how long I've been in Blog Talk Radio. She was inspired to create her podcast 6 months after her son Cal transitioned to spirit. And a new venture she's now co-hosting. I can't wait to hear about that. A brand new show, The Higher View, which just aired its first episode January 6th. And Caroline is an inspirational speaker, author, inspirational mentor to many who have loved ones in spirit. Caroline has given many presentations, workshops, been a featured speaker at many conferences, podcasts, spiritual center. She has written a chapter in the award-winning book, We Touched Heaven, a collection of experiences that reach beyond the veil. And Caroline has been featured in the documentary film Rinaldi, a documentary about instrumental transcommunication to the other side. The film has been awarded Best Afterlife Research Film in the 2022 Life Beyond Life Film Festival in Torino, Italy. This woman is a global presence here. So we're honored, very honored to bring Caroline Chang. Hi, Caroline. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Really clear. Yes. Your
good.
beautiful face is clear. Your voice is clear. This is an awesome day. Awesome 3 day.
Yes. To me, every day is an awesome day, and every moment is an awesome moment. I loved how you opened with exercise. I start my day, especially now in the new year. I take time for myself every day. You have to, I suggest that we love ourselves first thing in the morning. That's how we start our day with whatever practice that feels good to you. Before I get out the bed, I start my day with deep breathing exercises while I'm laying in the bed. So I start my day, then I get up, and then I'll start doing my meditation, and then some cardio workout and some yoga. So that's how I start my day. So if I have to get up earlier to do that, then I do. But most of the time, because I work from home, and I'm not a morning person, so I like to work late. I'm a night owl. I work late at night, many nights. So I usually get up when spirit wakes me up. That's when I wake up, and then I first hour or two of the day is my me time to love me. Yes, I think that's so important.
So, Caroline, where are you living right now? What city?
I am in the heart of the Pocono Mountains in Northeast Pennsylvania. Most people, well, I won't say most, a lot of people don't know where the Poconos are. Everyone has heard of the Poconos, but many people think it's upstate New York. No, we're near upstate, but we're not upstate New York. We're in Pennsylvania, it's in the northeastern corner of Pennsylvania. The Pocono Mountains is a large area, and I'm like right in the center of the Pocono Mountains, and I've lived here for 31 years.
Oh my goodness. Who stays in one place that long? You do.
Yes.
Well, you like cold weather, obviously.
Well, I love all weather, to be honest. I love the thing is, I love the seasons. I love everything about every season. So I need to be in a place that experiences all the seasons. And yes, we do. We used to basically, because I bought my house in 91. And when I bought my house in 91, back in the 90s, oh boy, did we get snow. We actually don't get as much snow nowadays as we used to, but I still love it here. Yes, I do.
Now, where were you born?
I was born in New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, I should have known the accent gives you away.
Accent.
You don't really I'm really joking. You don't really have that accent. That
Okay.
yours is not strong at all. Most of the time you're right away. Oh, that's New Jersey or New York. But no, you've blended in.
Well, my father was big on, he would say, speak the king's English, So he was big on enunciation. And I remember as a 5-year-old hearing that word enunciate.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, yeah. So my father was big on us speaking proper as we could.
Is your father from the United States or?
Yes, my father, Albany, Georgia, is where my father was born and raised. Yes,
Okay.
and he came to Jersey before, long before I was.
So, so tell us a little bit about your childhood, your upbringing that makes you such a star today.
Well, thank you. Well, I was brought up. My father, both by professionals. My father was a dentist, because I always get is and was mixed up, because to me life is eternal. He's no longer here in this physical plane, but he's still here. He was a dentist, and my mom was the supervisor of a hospital lab in
Oh
Newark, New
my.
Jersey. So my parents sent me to Catholic school when I was, from K to 5th grade. K through 5th grade, I went to Catholic school. And one of the things as a child, because in Catholic school, we had religion every day. And one of the things that the dogma of the Catholic religion that we were being taught every day didn't resonate with me as 4 and 5-year-old. And but my father was strict, and he said children are to be seen and not heard. So even though what I was being taught about religion did not sit well in my heart. It's like something in my little body said, this is not right.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, well, when I get older, I can't speak on it. I can't say to my father or say to the priest, I don't think that's right. But I could wait till I get older, and I will do my own research. So that's what I did. As I got older, I started doing my own research. I remember one of the first books that opened me up spiritually was actually Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. How I
Oh,
read that book is I had a crush. I
oh,
was about 15 years old, and I had a crush on the guy. He was older. He was my cousin's best friend. And so it wasn't like we couldn't really date, but I had a crush, my first crush. And he said, read this book, Think and Grow Rich. Now, he was all into the book because he wanted to make money. Okay. And I was like, because I had a crush, so of course I'm going to read it. He says, read it. I'm going to read it. So I read it. And what resonated with me from that book was our thoughts create our own reality. Now, that's the first time I ever heard that. And so that was like, wow. So I've never, it's not in me to be interested in money. Money has never been a motivation for me ever. It has to feel right before I can do it. And for me, that connection of feeling started when I was very young. Like I said, when I was young in grammar school, and the religion was not feeling right in my soul, and I couldn't speak on it. I had to wait till I got older. So when I got older, like I said, the first book that introduced me to the concept that we are creating our own reality with our thoughts was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Then
and how old were you again when you read that?
I was 15.
Wow.
I
Do
was
you realize how significant that was? Because not only is it thoughts, not words,
15.
but thoughts. You started thinking about your thought, what you're thinking. You became more conscious about this part of your reality more even than this. I just
Exactly.
think that's really significant
Yes.
Is
Yes.
to show why you are doing this great work you're doing, because this is where it starts.
Well, it started at 15 with that book, and then from
Oh,
there, I got married very young. I married my first. It wasn't him. I married my first real boyfriend as soon as I graduated high school, and it kind of, for me, getting married so young was more, it was me just rebelling because my parents were very, especially my dad. My family was very strict, especially with females. Now, there was a double standard with boys and girls, and I was a really, really good child. Got good grades. I was good. But there was this stranglehold where as I was growing up into my teens, I couldn't do the things that other teenagers were doing. And so my way of rebelling, as soon as I graduated high school, I married my first boyfriend. And I knew when I married him, it wasn't like I loved him kinda, but
yeah.
on the day we got married, we eloped to Maryland where I could get married at 17. And in the justice of the peace office, in the justice office, as I'm marrying him, I'm thinking, I don't really love him, but this is a mistake.
The
This is
doubt, the doubt start in.
well, no, it wasn't a doubt. I was clear. I
Okay.
knew what I was doing, but I
Yeah.
felt this was a way of me now being able to step out into the world and live my life. Even though I was 17, I didn't know anything at 17, but still, I wanted to get out into the world and live my life and not be so constricted. So,
Well, what I mean about the doubts, I mean emotionally.
mhm,
I think when we marry, when we are first married, at least with me, and it sounds like for you, I don't know if this is love. I know
right,
I'm supposed to do this. I know I want to rebel. I know I want to get this man in my life, but
right.
love, man, I don't know about. It's like last night. Let me share this. Last night I saw the Tina Turner musical.
Okay.
It was amazing. The woman who played Tina Turner won a Tony Award on New York Broadway. So
Okay.
when she got to what's love got to do with it, the mind is like, yeah, what is that? But you're watching this great performance, but like
Right.
you said, I don't know about this love thing. So anyway, that's what I mean.
Well,
Doubt.
I knew even at that young age, I wasn't an adult by any means. I was still a
Right.
child.
Yeah.
But
Open, fresh.
I wanted to get out into the
Yeah.
world and live my life. And I always have been different. My
Yeah.
In my family, I was the different one. I remember my father saying to me when I was very young, him saying to me, "Why aren't you more like your brother?" And
Oh,
I'm thinking to myself at 5 years old, I'm
yeah.
thinking to myself, could not say it because I'd be picking my teeth up off the floor. But what I was thinking, because I'm not him. I'm
Yeah.
thinking I'm me. So what I'm trying to say, I've always had this internal connection here in
Yeah.
my heart, not my head,
Yeah.
to my higher self. It was always from birth. I
And
had
happy belated birthday, because Earth Day, because you said yesterday you celebrated so many years around the planet, or
yes,
around the sun.
yes,
So that says a lot about Capricorns, right? You're a Capricorn.
yes.
The way you're describing your young life and
Hmm.
preparing you to be the next level of a Capricorn, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I agree. I know everything in my life was what I needed to go through to get to who I am today. So
Right.
that I have no regrets, no
Yeah.
regrets at all. So I started studying a lot of metaphysical in the 80s and 90s. Well, even before that, well, 80s, starting in the 80s, I read everything I could find spiritually, metaphysically, and I still had, for me, it was this missing piece. I felt like, I'm like, all of this is good. I love what I'm reading. I love what I'm studying, but I felt in my heart and soul, I'm missing one piece. I'm missing one piece. And so that one piece was awoken in me when I watched the film called What the Bleep in 2007. And
Okay.
in that film was all about quantum physics. I had never heard of quantum physics, but
Wow.
that film I watched from beginning to end. It was a documentary and a film. And there was one sentence in that film that was the catalyst to my awakening. That one sentence was, the biggest problem in the world today is the illusion of separation. And
Mm.
that it wasn't, again, it wasn't here, it was here.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard that, Lynn McTaggart said that. She is amazing. She's an author. She's written a lot of wonderful books. Lynn McTaggart, you guys should look her up. She's amazing. She has been a guest on my show. But when she said that, it was a key, it was a catalyst to my awakening inside. It was an awakening from the inside out, which I knew that was true. That simple truth, that because we think we're separate, it is causing all of humanity's problems. And it was, so I awoke into the universal truth, that oneness, in that moment. And that awakening, all the questions I ever had were answered in that one moment. And that was in 2007. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Now I still had to grow in that awakening, but it was a real true awakening moment. And I say to everybody on the planet, we each awaken uniquely differently. We all have things that happen to us that gradually wake us up. And in truth, some souls have chosen not to awaken in this lifetime, and that's okay. There's no, when you wake to the universal truth of oneness, there's never a judgment. Everybody is exactly where they're supposed to be. Everybody is exactly where their soul means for them to be. And like I said, nothing I've ever gone through in my life, I look back at regret. I know that everything was a stepping stone to get me to where I am today.
A great day to have
Yes.
a conversation with Miss Caroline Chang, the host and producer of Awake to Oneness. I just love your story, that you learned so early about the thought, the thought importance of thoughts.
Well, that planted the seed. It planted the seed. Like I said, that was the first time I ever heard that, because I didn't hear that in Catholic school. Okay, so
Who didn't teach you that? What?
so okay, so in 2014, my son transitioned to spirit. And 6 months after his transition, he was 29 years old. I was inspired. It was in January of 2015. He transitioned in July of 2014. So in January of 2015, Spirit told me, like I said, I've always had this connection. And as I've grown and as I awakened to the universal truth of oneness, that connection has just got stronger and louder. So I launched my podcast, Awake to Oneness Radio. I said, if I'm here in this reality, I'm here for a purpose. We all are. We all have a unique purpose here. And I have to live that purpose. I understand and know. And when I say know, it's not a belief, it's a knowing. I know that there is only God. We are all one with God, and we are all one with each other. No matter what you call God, source, universe, Allah, it doesn't, Jehovah, it doesn't matter. God answers to every name, and he's everything, and he's everyone. He's that tree I'm looking at right now across the road.
Okay, so let me ask you a quick question. What was your grieving process like when your son?
I had never, not a minute, not a second. I was at complete peace. I was at complete peace when my son transitioned. And there's a story, there's a backstory to that. And if you read the chapter, basically, I don't want to get into that, because I want to get to the kind of the health topic that we're heading for. You can read about my journey of why I was at complete peace when my son transitioned. When my son's transition, I knew it was a soul plan. I knew that it was his soul's time. I know that every soul comes into this life in perfect divine timing. Every soul leaves this life in perfect divine timing. I knew it was a soul plan he and I made, and I knew he wasn't going anywhere, because I know there's nothing but eternal life and he would be right with me, and he's right with me now. Okay, so, but if you read my chapter that I wrote, which the title of the chapter is My Miracle on 34th Street, in the book, I can show you the book, We Touched Heaven. Okay, if you read that chapter, it will explain, it will share exactly why I was at peace. It'll give a journey that I went through with my son in 2011, 3 years before his transition. So that prepared me for his transition in 2014.
Now, We Touched Heaven, is that did you author that, or is that another?
It's the chapter, it's a collection. This book is a collection. And my chapter is entitled My Miracle on 34th Street. Matter of fact, if the other way you can get a glimpse into what I'm talking about is if you go to my website, which is awake2onenessradio.org. There's a blog post that talks about that, and it gives you more detail on that.
Great, because so many people could really benefit from reading and knowing your experience of grief was just not in the plan.
Not the word grief is not even in my vocabulary, and that's why I spend a lot of time mentoring those with loved ones in spirit, especially parents, especially parents that are in love. And my daughter just transitioned a month ago. So I have both my children are now in spirit, and they're both right here with me. Nukia's on this side of me. Kyle is on this side of me. I know that, and Nukia, even though my daughter just transitioned a month ago, she's already started communicating with me. I communicate with them all the time. They're not.
So let me ask you this question. I have this Facebook friend whose son at 17 died of an opiate overdose. And she, to this day, is still, she won't even admit she's in grief, but she is. I can see it. And she spends her time on Facebook preparing healthy meals. She's a shaman. She calls herself a shaman. Now, what do you say to someone who doesn't believe in this grief process thing, and they just choose to continue to pick up the pictures of their son and talk about their son, and then really disrespect the father who wasn't there? How do you?
Well, I mean, we have to allow people to be who they are.
Right. Okay.
Everybody goes through their process differently. They're not. We as human, when we're operating from our limited humanness, we want people to be like us. Right. Just like my dad said to me, "Why aren't you more like your brother?" Yeah. I'm not him. Right. I'm me, and she's she. You have to allow her to be who she is. Basically, no judge. That's why when you're awake to oneness, judgment goes out the window, because you know everyone is a sovereign divine being of light. That everyone is the same, equal in that. Everyone is on their own unique spiritual journey. You have to honor their journey. You share your truth in love and light, and allow them to be who they are. All I can do is inspire, and I say that with my show. I can inspire people to go within and tap into their truth inside their heart. It's not here, it's here. And the reason I say it's not here is because our ego, our limited human self operates from here. Our soul, our higher self, our spirit operates from the heart. So it has to be a heart and soul connection. And we have to judgment goes out of the window when you truly know. What I was trying to say, it's a difference for me, knowing and believing. A belief can be changed. You can have a belief today and have a totally different belief tomorrow. But a knowing, which comes from the heart and soul, that you're grounded in, it doesn't change. So my knowing of oneness, all I would say to her is, let her be her.
Yeah. You know, I think early on, my fear of, and I would say it was a fear because my sister developed breast cancer after the death of after her daughter, her only child, transitioned from being hit by a car one day, and she was gone. And for 2 years, my sister was in deep grief. She developed breast cancer from that event. I know for a fact, for German New Medicine teachers. And she was gone. My sister transitioned almost 3 years exactly to the day her daughter passed. So
Mm-hmm.
when I see someone like this friend on Facebook still struggling with this transition of her child 3 years later, my fear was like, oh no, she's going to get breast cancer. Oh no, she's going to die. And I'm glad that you're giving this wisdom about each person has to have a journey, even in their grief or not. That
Right.
is not me to judge. And I think I was in judgment after being with my sister, lived with me for 9 months, Caroline, with
Mm-hmm.
breast cancer. And we were
Mm-hmm.
trying to get her over, help her get over it. But I saw clearly her grief and guilt from her daughter's death was driving this cancer in her breast. So
Mm-hmm.
that experience for me really set in judgment and fear about the next person, like this woman whose son died and she's still in grief. And I'm, oh my goodness, she's going to get a disease. But as you're saying, each person has to make a journey. And it may not look good for me or anybody else, but I need to step back and
You
believe
have
that goodness.
you have to honor everyone.
Honor this word. I think.
And honor them as a sovereign,
Yeah,
divine being of light, which they
yeah,
are.
right.
And they are creating their reality. It's all a soul plan. Like I know that both my children, we had that soul plan before my birth. They chose me in
Yeah,
spirit. They chose me to be their mom. And
right.
I, as their mom in spirit, agreed that they would leave this 3D matrix before me. And I had a mission. But like I said, that's why that story is very important. With my son in 2011, when he didn't transition, he literally stayed 3 years longer for
Mm,
me to get ready. I
wow.
wasn't, if he had left in 2011, I may not be doing what I came here to do. He
Mhm.
stayed
Mhm.
longer. That's why I said I experienced a true miracle. And that miracle changed my life and put me on this path. So that miracle put me on my soul's path before his transition. So that was 2011 that I was put on this. And then he transitioned in 2014. I was at complete peace. My daughter transitioned a month ago. I was at complete peace. I know they're not gone. When you know it, like breathing, that life is eternal, there is no such thing as death. You don't grieve. Okay,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to try to force that knowing onto
Mhm.
someone else.
Mhm.
All I can do is share from my heart and soul, and hopefully it can inspire them to go within and tap into that knowing, because all wisdom is inside of us. It's not
Yeah.
outside of us, it's inside of us, and we can all tap into it. But we quiet our mind, quiet the monkey mind, the ego mind. That's all about our human experience, that monkey. But our heart and soul is about our soul's journey and why we came.
So tell us about Awake to Oneness journey 8 years ago. What was it like? What has it been like the last 8 years to develop that Awake to Oneness
Well,
radio?
it's just, I love just having conversations with people that I admire. I've had many well-known guests. I've had not so well-known guests. I find people online that I invite to be guests, and we have a one-on-one conversation like we're doing right now. So it's actually, it made me become a better speaker,
Listener and listener.
listener, and
Mhm.
speaker,
Yeah.
and doing my workshops and my presentations. All of that came from, first being a producer and host of my own radio show. And then I just grew into the role of teaching and sharing on a bigger scale. So yes, so it's amazing.
Now
Yeah.
you said you when our conversation you said you teach piano lessons.
Yes, I've been teaching piano lessons for over 30 years. Yes,
Wow.
I still teach piano
So
lessons.
I want to get into you. I thought it was so interesting how you learned to connect piano, and was it autism? You were teaching
Well,
children?
I started teaching, let's see, I started teaching in 92. Okay. The year after I bought my home here, I bought a baby grand piano. And the reason I started teaching is I'm like, I can start teaching part-time just to help pay for this piano. And I love teaching. I love children. I love music. I just loved it. So I just turned it into a business. And when I left the corporate world, that was I still always had other things, projects that I worked on, but that was my main, at one time, that was my main source of income, was teaching piano. Now, my first autistic student I got in 2005. So I had been teaching for over 10 years before I had never heard of autism. And I always specialized with young beginners, and he was 7 and he was autistic. And I've had several autistic students. Right now, I only have one student, and he's autistic.
Wow.
I've been teaching him for 6 years now. Each one of the things I can say about autistic students, they're all very different. They're not no, but that's like all children. They're just uniquely different. But they're so loving, and they so want to learn. It fills my heart with joy. So I started specializing not only with young beginners, but also with autistic students. And that started in 2005.
Well, isn't that the beauty of learning more about autism? This spectrum of, they're very different. They're not
Yes.
all in this little box. They're not all the same.
Right.
There's Asperger's syndrome, I think they call one aspect of it. Then there's another. And that is a lesson for us, don't you think?
Yes.
Love and appreciate, and like you say, honor
Yes.
their unique journey as autistic spectrum in the souls. Let's just say souls. They came in here to teach us something.
They did. Very, very true. Very true. Now, my journey of learning more about how they became autistic started in 2020.
Okay.
Actually, it started in March of 2020.
Right.
Well, I'll say April. April of 2020 is when the mayor of Pennsylvania mandated face mask wearing. I shook my head, not breathing, meaning not the only way you're going to put a mask on me is I'm in the ground. Okay. Yeah. I'm not wearing a mask, and I'm going shopping, and I'm doing what I need to do. I'm not doing, I saw it from day one. I'm like, no, you're not going to control me. I know how to take care of myself physically. Extremely healthy. I have not been to a Western medicine doctor since 98, and I will never go, and I will never take a pharmaceutical. None of that. Everything natural. And I'm like, I'm not suffocating myself because you tell me to, and all of this is a scam. So anyway, but I took a deep dive because I knew when the governor of Pennsylvania mandated mask wearing, I said, the next thing they're going to do is try to mandate a jab. And I'm like, so that's when I took my deep dive into it. In last 3 years, I've had medical doctors, all kind, the truth, what you would call the truth and freedom doctors on my show. And I've become good friends with many of them.
Yes.
Okay. So my daughter was diagnosed in 2003 with MS, with multiple sclerosis. Right. And I'm like, where did this come from?
Right.
I didn't know where it came from until 2020, when I was working with the doctors, and they told me that this was known by the CDC, that a certain jab can cause MS. And they knew that from the 80s. So it wasn't something new. And actually, my daughter got the second booster to that jab when she was 17 to go to college. Both my children, they never had boosters to go to school. They had their babies jabs, but they, after a while, I'm like, I don't need to take them for any more jabs. I just knew instinctively. You know? I was just instinct. I didn't know anything about the jabs
Right.
at that time. I just like instinctively, they don't need anymore. And
Yeah.
but my daughter, my son didn't go to college, but my daughter did. And to get into college, she had to get those boosters that were scheduled between 4 and 6. She got hers at 17. And I really believe that was the catalyst to
Yeah.
cause her MS.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so the thing I wanted to now, the main thing I told you I wanted to share with your audience, because so many people are not aware of the 1986 Act. It is a law that was signed by President Ronald Reagan in 1986. I really want people to do their homework on this. I actually just watched a documentary so I could be even more informed on it. I watched the documentary on it last night. The documentary is the 1986 The Act, and it's a documentary film. And it gives you, it's so many people. I asked my aunt the other day, she called me to wish me happy birthday. I said, Auntie, have you ever heard of the 1986 Act? She's like, no. I mean, we have to be educated on this, because the act, that act is a law that actually protects the biggest criminals in the history of the United States. And this is factual, what I'm saying. I know we have to be careful because of censorship. I've had my show 8 years. All of a sudden now I'm being censored, okay? And I'm speaking nothing but truth. But we understand that the powers that be this is why we don't know these things, because the powers that be don't want us to know these things, don't want us to know that there is a law on the books that actually protects the biggest criminals in the history of the US. Because I say the pharmaceutical industry, they are the biggest criminals, because they've had to pay out the largest billions and billions of dollars in fines, in criminal fines. And these are on products that they are liable for. So imagine this. The jabs, none of the jabs they're liable for. That started in 1986. And the other thing, okay, so and this I learned from the film last night. So back in 1986, and my kids were born in the early 80s. My daughter was born in 1980, and my son was born in 84. So thank God my kids were born before 86, because 86, from birth to 18, there is 24 doses from birth to 18. That's 1986. And 2020, and I think it's gotten higher, but because the film was done in 2020. In 2020, it went from 24 doses in 1986 to 72 doses.
Whoa.
From birth to 18.
Wow.
That is what the CDC schedule is for our children now, to get 72 doses. And that was 2020. I think, well, they just added, we know they just added one. So it's at least 73. Okay, now. So, and they did that because in 86, all liability was taken away from them. So now they can do whatever they want. And they don't have to worry what happens. They don't have to worry what happens to our children. They don't have to worry what happened to our children that have grown into adults. They don't have. And the other thing, so in 86, the other thing they got was a jab court. So everybody understands what I say when I'm saying the jab, because censorship, I'm not saying the other word. So now but the jab court is the government, okay? Meaning when the jab court paid out on injuries, it was your tax dollar that was paying your tax. So many people don't know this. Your tax dollar from 86 onward was paying for injuries. Now, in the beginning, I found this out in the film last night. In the beginning, in 86, actually the court, that jab court was working kind of okay. The only part that was bad, it wasn't the pharmaceutical paying out any money. It was you, the taxpayer, paying for pharmaceutical injuries. But they were actually paying like 92% of the cases got paid. Okay. And I'm thinking to myself, it's still, but people don't realize it's their money. It's not the pharmaceutical. The $1 trillion industry is not paying for this harm that they're causing.
Well, you know what, Caroline, the interesting thing is our government is just as criminal as the pharmaceutical.
Well, no, they're in bed together. No. Now the regulatory agencies, the FDA, the CDC, the NIH, the HHS, all these agencies that are supposed to protect.
Let me just say, this is so, I want everybody to really pay attention. We're going to have to go to a break. This is so important to raise our consciousness and our knowledge and awareness of what the heck is going on. Because when you share something like this, you wonder if everybody had this knowledge and information, the last 3 years would have been reject. No, I'm not taking, I don't trust you. I don't trust anything your pharmaceuticals do. But instead, we've been kept in ignorance. So
and it's not even the last 3 years. Think about our children. And now they give a jab to pregnant women. So it starts before birth. Okay.
That's why, on my Sunday show, I did 3 parts about ignorance. Ignore the ants, the wisdom. And that's what we're talking about here today, folks, is that we have been ignoring the wisdom of the ants to protect our children, ourselves from this corrupt government, this corrupt corporation. And you're right about how many fines that these companies have paid out in the billions. And it's
on drugs that they are liable for. Okay, they are they're criminal fines, meaning they knowingly fraud if they're lying about drugs that they are liable for. What do you think they're doing for the jabs that they are not liable for?
Absolutely, it's so insane.
It's crazy.
It's like a movie. We're watching this crazy Twilight Zone movie. That's what I've been calling the last 3 years.
Exactly.
Because if they knew what you're going to be sharing, they would never have fallen for this okie dokie bullet BS. But you know what does it? Well, we got to go take a break. The advertising and the propaganda with media. The media.
They own it. The pharmaceutical industry owns all of the media. That's all you see are those ads. I stopped watching regular television in 2011, but I stopped watching news in 2001. I have not watched 1 second of mainstream news.
And we also have to hold these government employees, senators, congressmen accountable. I think we're going to put them
not going to fix it.
Category 2.
Right. They're in bed with them. They are not going to fix it. I don't care who you elect into office. They are not going to fix the problem. We have to fix the problem.
And that is exactly.
When we come back from break, I'm going to talk about that.
Absolutely. We're fired up now. We had a warm-up hour. Now we're fired up, ready to go. So we'll be right back after these messages. Hang in there, folks. We got a whole lot more to talk about. So we'll be right back. And we're on Facebook Live with my special guest, Caroline Chang, the host and producer of Oneness Radio. Awake to Oneness Radio. And I had a question during the break about the name of the law. Is it the 1986 law?
It's the 1986 Act, ACT. All you gotta do, and the film is 1986, The Act, documentary film that came out on
YouTube or Netflix.
Actually, it's you have to go to their website. It's not free. But because I actually met the director, he's a doctor, Dr. Andy Wakefield. I met him at an event. Yes.
Andrew Wakefield. Yeah.
And Andrew Wakefield is the director of the film. But
Right.
just you can actually just look it up. I mean, what I'm telling you is, this is a law. So it's an act that President Ronald Reagan signed in. Basically, here's because I got the lowdown because I watched the documentary. I knew a lot of this stuff before I watched it, but now I got the lowdown. Back in the early 80s, they were getting sued and losing so much. Matter of fact, they were to the point. Okay, there's a thing called discovery. When a case would come to court, and then it got to the discovery process, that's when the pharmaceutical would just give money, pay money. They're like, okay, we're not going to give you discovery. We're not going to show you what we know, what we knew when we knew it. We're not going to do that. We'll just pay you money. Okay, so that went on in the early 80s. Okay, then it got to the point where the pharmaceutical companies were losing so much money. They said, we will stop. They threatened Congress. They said to Congress, if you don't give us liability, they said to our government, if you don't give us liability protection, we're going to stop making the jabs. Okay, so our government's like, okay, you're giving us all this money. We don't want to lose you. We care more about you, big pharma, than the people. They're just eaters. Okay, so yeah, they're just pawns. They're like, okay, yeah. So they took all liability away. But there is, hold on, in the original act, in the original 1986 act, there was three things that you could still sue the pharmaceutical industry. If there was proof of fraud, you could still sue. Okay. It also, if they didn't maintain the VAERS system, which is the maintenance system of finding out the injuries. Okay. Right. And the Harvard independent study did in 2015 said only less than 1% of injuries are reported to VAERS. Okay.
Let me just think. VAERS stands for Vaccine Adverse Event Report, right?
Exactly. Okay. VAERS, right. VAERS. Yeah. I was saying VAERS because I didn't want to say the V word. Right. Anyway, okay. So and Harvard did an independent study in 2015 and found out that less than 1% is being reported to VAERS. But in the 1986 Act, it indicates they have to maintain their HHS, which is Health and Human Services. HHS has to maintain VAERS accurately and report to Congress every 2 years. Ask me how many times has HHS actually done that since 86?
Oh, okay. So this opens for a lawsuit then.
Right. So wait, listen to what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
In the act that was signed in 86, you can sue the pharmaceutical industry if there was proof of fraud, if they did not maintain the VAERS system, which was supposed to be reporting, HHS was supposed to be reporting to Congress every 2 years. They have never reported to Congress, okay? And the CDC has openly admitted that VAERS is not accurate, okay? All right. And then the other reason was, like, there's a third one that I learned yesterday, which was, now it'll come to me. But there was three loopholes built into the 1986 acts for our protection, right? Right. Now come 2011. You have to look up this case. 2011, there was a family that brought the case and went all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, in that Supreme Court ruling, the justices, it was, 9? So 2, it was 7-2. 2 justices was for on our side, and 7 were on the big pharma side. And they said in their ruling, that the jabs are unavoidably unsafe. Right. I'll repeat that. The jabs are unavoidably unsafe. So in my mind, common sense. Okay, if they're unavoidably unsafe, then the pharmaceutical companies are unavoidably liable for any harm and damages. But
What
no, the 7 justices sided with the pharmaceutical company, and that was in 2011. So what I'm doing, this is my New Year's resolution, because like I said, my daughter just transitioned a month ago. And when my son transitioned, my inspiration was Awake to Oneness Radio, which I'm still doing. Okay. And I've got a new show, like you mentioned, The Higher View. So I'm still doing that. But with my daughter's transition, my mission is to take it back to the Supreme Court. I don't care if I have to do it myself, but I know I'll have a whole army behind me. I'm taking this to the Supreme Court again, because we weren't ready. We weren't awake enough in 2011. We're awake now. After the last 3 years, we are awake now. And there is no way this is okay. The 1986 Act is unlawful. It's unconstitutional. And it is a crime against humanity. And this is a law on the books, okay? Again, it is unlawful, it's unconstitutional, and it is a crime against humanity, because it is an act, it is a law that only protects the biggest criminals in history. And that's a fact, because they have paid out the largest criminal fines in the billions for products they are liable for. So this is what I am on a mission now, to wake people up, open your eyes, and learn what is actually happening with the pharmaceutical industry and our government, which are in bed together.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. And it just makes sense. Higher View is giving you the seal of approval, if you will. The Higher View, the creator, the universe is giving you the seal of approval that this is the year 2023 is a 7. This is your
7 year. It is
seal of approval to start this mission and bring those who are woke and conscious along with you. I'm with you, sister, because I have 2 grandchildren, and I don't know what they plan in the next year. Gates already got a plan for the next pandemic, and if we don't do something, they're going to think they can continue to bamboozle us with these lies. It's just amazing that people are still looking for a booster. They knew what you
I think, but last I heard, only 15% are getting
population
of 15% of this of the US, from what I last heard, and I heard this a few days ago, only 15%. I don't know. They drank the Kool-Aid, and all you got to do is love them. I'm serious. I have no judgment. It was their, like I said earlier, I said, not every soul has agreed to awaken in this lifetime. And it's okay, because no soul is ever harmed.
Right.
We live hundreds, if not thousands of lifetimes. So we can share in love and light. That's all we can do, and send love and light to everybody. Share and love and light. But if they decide they want to keep rolling up their sleeve, we can't do anything about it, especially the adults. But what it is in this country, they're going after the babies. Okay? Are you kidding me? So now I draw the line with the babies and the children, because they're not making this decision. Maybe they're parents who are not educated, or when I say educated, not aware of the scam in front of their face. And all I can do is just say, pray to parents to open their eyes, because the children don't have a say in the matter. Now, if an adult decides, I'm going to go, okay, I'm like, okay, I told you and I've been matter of fact, I encourage your listeners to please go to my website, because I have several blog posts that I just wrote one the other day called Belief Over Facts. I have been sharing facts with my audience for 3 years. I mean, just facts. Here's a facts. Here are the facts. And they're don't want to see. They don't want to hear. They don't want to see. You cannot make an adult hear you or see you if they just don't want to.
Well, my biggest wake up came in, let's see, we were in 2021, I think it was. Both my adult sons in their 30s came to me on Mother's Day. Mother's Day, honey.
I know that was not a very good Mother's Day gift at all.
And they said, they came to visit me in my nice big, I was staying in an ashram with this beautiful pool and all this. And I'm like, oh, Mother's Day, I'm going to spend with my, and they said, Mom, we have something to tell you. And they said, we got the jab. I'm like, it was like the depression. I went into deep depression.
I know.
For about 30 minutes. I'm serious. Because both of them.
I know.
And they were bragging about which one. They both got different jabs. I'm like, how could they? Because Caroline, I was sharing the facts.
I know.
For over a year. I'm just share the facts. Don't push it. Just share the facts. Share the fact. And then they come to me, Will, we got the jab. I'm like, how could this happen? And then I heard, just like you, I heard Spirit say, now, maybe you can enter into a different relationship other than the mother role, because you're not influencing them. You sent all those facts out. You didn't influence them. They went and did it anyway.
Right.
A huge, huge wake up to, hey, these are adult souls. Right. I have more control and even influence. So I need to just accept them as partners on this soul journey.
And you have to say, well, it is their soul's choice. Anyone that gets these jabs, it is their soul's choice, because there is so much. I mean, all people have to do is do a little deep dive on their own, and they're going to find so much. Now, my son was not around in the last 3 years, but my daughter was. And I told my daughter in 2020, her MS is caused from a jab. And when I told her that, she didn't want to have anything to do with this jab. She listened. She did listen. She did not. So I'm
already suffering, right? I mean, she was already suffering.
Oh yes, the last 6 to 7 years, she was wheelchair bound. She was living in New York with her fiance, who's also handicapped, but he was her caregiver. And so she was living the last 5 years. She was living with her fiance, and I would say, well, maybe the last 4 years or so, she was completely wheelchair bound. Yes.
Have you looked into cures for MS?
People ask me that all the time. I'm completely holistic. I just turned 61 yesterday. I feel like I'm 25. Okay. I'm completely mind, body, soul, all natural. Okay. Let me tell you what I told my daughter when she was diagnosed with MS in 2003. I said, do not believe in that diagnosis. Mind over matter. Everything is mind over matter. Now, my daughter and I had the kind of a very typical mother and daughter relationship. Everything I said, I'm crazy. Now, she did, towards the end of her life, she did listen to me as far as the COVID madness. Okay, she did listen to me I'm saying when she was in her early 20s, the last person she listened to was me. Right. I would send her all this stuff. I know I had several guests on my shows that was diagnosed with MS, that cured themselves of MS. Everything is curable because the body can heal itself. I had at least 3 guests on my show that were diagnosed with MS. One of them, the same year my daughter was diagnosed, and she owns and operates a hot yoga studio, and she teaches hot yoga every day. No symptoms. Now, she says to people, she calls herself asymptomatic MS. I said, stop saying that. Stop giving MS any power over your life. You don't have it. You cured yourself of it. Just because doctors say it can't be cured, you're cured. There was a guy that was on my show who even went to visit my daughter. There was a guy, he lived in Philadelphia and he went to Jersey. My daughter was living in Jersey at the time, and he went to Jersey to talk to my daughter and he had more influence over her than I did, but she still didn't listen. He cured himself. He was on 14 different medications. He was diagnosed with MS and a bunch of other stuff. He weaned himself off of every medication. He started doing yoga and meditating, and he cured himself.
Wow.
I know that MS is many, maybe hundreds of thousands of people have cured themselves of MS, but my daughter would not listen. I couldn't make her listen. Okay.
So that goes back to the influence she had on your assignment,
Yes.
which was to grow after her transition.
Right.
Yeah. But she wasn't supposed to listen.
Right.
She was supposed to complete
her soul's right.
last month, and then you now
Right.
are telling her story, which is really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to help more people that she transitioned than if she maybe had healed and was carrying on.
Right.
Because it's a powerful testimony of when our children transition. That's so hard for many people, and that's our greatest fear at times.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, what if they die? Oh my, I can't lose my sister. When her daughter passed on, I remember her sitting in my living room, and I said, "Can we talk about your daughter?" Her name was Naya. Naya's her daughter. And she said, "You've never lost a child." She went into this dramatic role. "You never lost a child." And then I said, "Oh my goodness, we can't talk because she's still in grief, unforgiveness, and guilt." This daughter was born from a married man. She had an affair with a married man, so that's how she got pregnant. And then the guilt around just that incident itself, and she couldn't forgive her. My sister couldn't forgive herself after losing her 14 years old.
Well, let me share a little bit. Like I said, you could, if people go to my website, they can read a blog post I wrote recently about it, because the anniversary of my miracle on 34th Street was December 30th. My son was in the hospital in 2011. December, on his birthday, it was Thanksgiving Day that year. He's born November 24th. He was in the hospital. Next day after his birthday, he was medevac to the big hospital in Philadelphia and put on life support. After a week of him being on life support, doctors told me my son wasn't going to live. Now, this is in 2011. I was fully awake to oneness. I was fully awake to what I was going through. I was creating. It was a soul plan I was creating. I said, not me. I'm checking out. I am not buried. I wrote a suicide note. I am not burying my son. My son is going to bury me. Give him my heart. Now, my son's problem, it only affected him the last 3 years of his life, but he was born with a congenital heart problem. He lived a very, very healthy 26 years. He even played football in high school. And when he was 26, he was diagnosed with congestional heart failure, and he struggled the last 3 years of his life. But anyway, in 2011, when doctors told me that my son wasn't going to live, I went up to a quiet waiting room. I had lived in that hospital for 5 weeks, so I knew where everything was. I went to this quiet waiting room. I wrote a suicide note. Only thing I could get my hands on was over-the-counter sleeping pills. I took a bottle of sleeping pills. I said, my son, I'm not going to bury my son. My son is going to bury me. Give him my heart. He needs a heart. Give him my heart. I woke up 3 days later. I was unconscious for like 3 days. They put me on 24-hour suicide watch. They let me visit with him for about an hour a day with an aide right beside me. I remember the last time I had one of those supervised visits with my son. I whispered in his ear. I said, Kyle, please get better so we could both go home. That night, my son pulled himself off life support. He pulled out the ventilator. He pulled out the feeding tube, and they're semi-sedated. because you can't, if you have someone on a ventilator, they have to be sedated. So he was semi-sedated. He pulled it out. His vital signs were perfect. The doctors said it was like he was never even sick. It was a true miracle. God knew I wasn't going home from that hospital without my son in December 2011. I brought my son home on December 30th, the day before New Year's Eve. I made a promise to God. I said, God, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I am so thankful that you allowed me to bring my son home. And my son stayed with me for 3 more years in this physical realm. So when he transitioned, I was at complete peace because I never broke that promise to God. Mm-hmm. From that day, from December 30th, 2011, I do nothing but give thanks in every now moment. So that's why I said, you guys got to read. You can read that whole journey, and we touched heaven. Okay. All right. So I understand where your sister was. I was blessed. I was blessed with 3 more years with my son. I'll never take back that promise I made to God and to myself. I know that every now moment is a blessing. I know my children are not gone. They're both here with me now. And my son has already told me. The other thing I got to tell you, I have my son's voice and images from spirit. And I have a video on my YouTube channel. You can hear my son's voice from a medium, an expert medium. Her name is Suzanne Giesman. She's been a guest on my show. I can call her a friend. She's an evidential medium. She gifted me a reading on my son's birthday in 2016. And my son was trying to talk through her computer, and we have his voice on tape. I have images that Rinaldi, you mentioned the film that I'm featured in. Rinaldi is a Brazilian researcher who communicates with our loved one on the other side. She gets audio and she gets images. She has so many images of Kyle, has come to her so many times, and she has the images of Kyle. You can see my son. Liz, I have physical evidence my son is not gone. Okay.
Now, your daughter was how many years after?
My daughter 8, because my son passed. My son transitioned 8.5 years ago, and my daughter just transitioned.
Right.
My daughter was older. My daughter was 42.
Oh, okay. She was older.
She's old. She's not the young. My son was the baby. My son was 29 years old when he transitioned, and my daughter was 42 when she transitioned.
Were they close? The siblings?
Very close. Very close. Matter of fact, my daughter's MS had gone into remission after she had my grandson. My grandson was born in 2010. And she, all through her pregnancy until my grandson was about 3, my daughter was in remission. And that happens a lot with MS patients when they have a child. But after, and she was really pretty much still in remission when Kyle transitioned. But that hit her so hard, just like you said, that emotion, that brought the MS back.
Oh, wow.
You know? The emotional loss of her baby, even though he was much taller than she. He was 6'2", and she's just an inch taller than me, so she's like 5'3". But that was still her baby. That was her baby boy. You know, that was her.
The stress I see even in this current jab situation. Some people got the jab, but they're not showing any symptoms. And some other people, like this football player who recently had a heart attack, I think the stress of his life playing that game and having another jab booster possibly will affect those the symptoms that people get, and others don't get symptoms.
Honestly, sweetie, I don't think they're all the same. They're not equal. The jabs are not equal.
They're not. Okay. The doses that they've been given are not the same.
They're not equal. Some, I think, some might even be placebo.
That's what I'm hearing
some
too.
might be
Might
even
be saline. Some of them
right.
were
Some
saline.
of them, and I think a large percent of them, I honestly think a large percent of them are harmless, because if everybody just started dropping, the gig would be up. So that's
Yeah,
a deliberate, they're doing it deliberately to
yeah.
make it look like it's not that bad. But listen to me. Do you know that since the rollout of the jabs, there has been 1,598 professional players that have fell out on the field? Many of them have died with heart attacks.
Yeah.
You know that. Now,
800%.
before the rollout of these jabs, that was unheard of.
Right.
Now it's like, especially in Europe and other places, soccer, it's commonplace. These professional athletes are dropping like flies. Most people don't even know that. I mean, everybody saw it on Monday Night Football, but
Right.
a lot of people don't realize that has been happening for the last 2 years
Right.
all over the world.
That's right.
Yes.
So we got to take our last break, and when
Okay.
we come back, we want to hear more about the higher view,
Okay.
because that is significant for 2023. I think you're right in line with this number for this year, and the event, and the divine energy has given you the higher view to promote, and we want to hear more about that. So I'm going
Sure.
to take our last break here, and we'll come right back.
Okay.
All right, we're back. Thank you so
You know
much.
what? I want to say something really important
Yes,
about what we've been going through, especially the last 3 years.
yes, go right
Okay,
ahead.
when we talk about freedom, okay, our bodies are our temple,
Yes,
okay?
yes,
And if we have to put something inside our body against our will, we're nothing but a piece of meat. We're nothing but a piece of cattle. I want people to really think about that. I mean, what I eat organic food. I eat what I want to nourish my body. I mean, I know there's people out there eating McDonald's every day. That's their choice, okay? But I choose what goes into my body. And the other thing, we were talking about the schedule from birth, and actually it's before birth, because pregnant women, now when I was having my children in the early 80s, there was no vaccine, or sorry, there was no jab given to pregnant women when I was having my babies. Now they give jabs to pregnant women, so that baby is actually getting a jab before birth to
insane,
18.
insane. That's insanity. That's insane.
And 18, but 72. And you know what's in these? People don't even know what's in them. But I can tell you there's metals in them. There's mercury and there's aluminum. Why would you inject your body? You're not metal. Why would you put metal inside your body? I just want people, honestly, I just want people to open their eyes and really look into what's happening in this world.
Well, I don't know if you saw the footage of the football player who had a heart attack on Monday.
I
Those
did.
players, though his teammates were in tears. You
I
can
know.
see the fear on their eyes. This is what we need to wake people up.
Yes.
That this sport will have many of them dying. They have already had NFL, NBA. They've already had, but to be on television, that's important, because
Yes.
that's what's going to wake people up. The shock of seeing these things happen,
Right.
because we've been in this bubble of, it's safe and effective,
Not
and
a bubble, the lie.
lie.
It's a blatant lie.
So I think it's significant that Barbara, we talked about the view, how you started the higher view, because Barbara Walters passed on recently, who started the original view,
Right.
which is a liberal puppet show of women talking about nonsense, basically, and promoting the media and big pharma and all that. So tell us about the higher view, because that's so relevant and timely for this season. We're in Barbara Walters gone. She created the view. Now we bring in Caroline Chang, the higher view. Perfect timing, Caroline. Thank you for being obedient.
Thank you. We're actually going to be live streaming our second show this afternoon. It'll be 1:00 Eastern. The ladies that I met these ladies at a conference where I was a featured speaker. So in September, I met these ladies. One of them I already knew, but then when we got to the conference, I met these other ladies. And Victoria is the one that had the idea for the higher view. And we started talking about this back in September. And I'm like, yes, I want to be a part of this. So and she said she got the concept from the view, but she said she wants a show with the higher view where we're talking about not this worldly, earthly perspective. We're talking from the soul. We're sharing from the soul higher view perspective. And we, like I said, we did our first show last Friday. So we air live. It's going to be, actually, it's not, I haven't set it up on my YouTube yet to air live. I just take the replay and put it on my YouTube. But it will be airing live on Victoria's YouTube and her Facebook and Kathy's YouTube and Facebook. And, but just, if you go to, I'm trying to think the best way to see it. Victoria Reynolds is her name. She's the one, it was her, she was this is the higher view is her brainchild. So if you look up Victoria Reynolds, and the name of her television network is free. Oh God. Why am I not? It's this
Reynolds is Reynolds. Is it
Reynolds? Yes, Victoria Reynolds, and I can't think of the name of her TV network. But Victoria, if you look up Victoria Reynolds, you should find her on YouTube and on Facebook, and you can watch it live. I'm so bad. I'm sorry, I didn't even think to write down the name of her.
So it's a weekly show.
It's a weekly show. It's gonna air Eastern time. She's in California, so it's airing 10:00 a.m. in California and 1 p.m. Eastern.
Now I'm curious: do all these women have different religious beliefs, or what's their belief in terms of?
Actually, I think we're all pretty much spiritual. We don't really follow any organized religion. Either one of us. I from what I understand, we're pretty much spiritual. Yeah,
that's interesting. And same age range too.
Actually, I think I might be the oldest.
Oh, okay.
I think I am the oldest. I just turned 61 yesterday, and I believe I'm almost positive I'm the oldest. The only one that might be older than me is Kathy.
Well, that's beautiful, because my perception, my belief at this point is we need to listen to the younger generation, and here's why I say that. We messed up. The baby boomers messed up in not enforcing truth with this government. We let them run hog wild with war, and now the jabs, and we messed up big time. We were protesting the Vietnam War, and then we kind of just went to sleep, in my opinion, and let them do their thing. So now this generation is really, in a way, rebelling with their lifestyle, their gender problems. All this is coming out in the younger generation. And I started listening to Kanye West music this year, or recently, because
I never really listened to Kanye West.
I never listened to the man ever. In fact, I was telling my children, "Don't you listen to him? Don't you listen?" All those years. But after his mother died,
yes,
he made a album dedicated to her, and I listened to a couple. I got goosebumps.
Okay,
so spiritual. His mother's death, just like the deaths, the transitions in your life, they created a new person in the mind and his creative energy. He has one called Pure Souls. That is like speaks to me, and I
gotta check. I'm gonna look that one up. I'm gonna look it up.
My grandchildren can listen to this if they want, but the other music he used to play, no, I don't want to hear it.
Well, he said one thing, and I can tell you he said this in 2017. early in 2017, I heard him on an interview, and he said, there's one race. It's the human race. And when he said that, I'm like, ooh, Kanye. Okay. Yeah. I was like, yeah. So Kanye has said things that have piqued my interest. I can tell you that.
He's in a new place right now. Social media is like, where's Kanye? Where's Kanye? I'm like, even if he
Now he's Yay though. Remember, he's not Kanye. He's Yay.
Even to me, Caroline, even if he transitions, he's already made his mark. He's made his mark. If he leaves this planet, we got plenty of music and words from this messenger to educate and lift us up. So it doesn't matter where he is right now. He's in his place, wherever he is. But you and I, as baby boomers, we need to listen to that generation if they're speaking spiritual messages, because we were not doing our job in 30, 40 years ago. We went to sleep. We got our big houses, 3-car garages, we got the big job.
Well,
and
to be honest, I think there's a mixture. I think there are, in our generation, I believe there was the first wave of light workers came in the 50s and the 60s. And I believe that we're part of that. So, and there are more light workers coming up behind us, but there's still some of the young, you're talking about our generation, some of the young has been so indoctrinated. Even take your sons, for example, love them. But, so some of the young have been very indoctrinated as well. So it's a mixture. We can't really put it on one generation or the other.
Well, that's why I think you and I, as blog talkers and radio hosts, we're learning to listen.
Yes.
I realized at 9 years in blog talk radio, I've been doing soul purpose healing for 9 years. And one of the things, I started out with one person listening, one co-host, nobody listening for a while, nobody, and then another co-host. And the one thing that I've developed is listening.
Right.
People come in and out of these shows, and if we're not listening, then we're not hearing the Most High telling us what's coming, what's current, what's relevant, what is your assignment. Are these people part of your assignment? Are they part of just passing through? There's so many messages that we get being host of a blog talk and these shows that we got to listen. We got to listen not only to the Most High's voice, that's number one.
Yes.
But to the people who are coming through, we need to hear what did you just say? Oh, okay. I think we're a messenger for today.
Right.
And share this one, awake to oneness. Go back to that.
Yes.
We are one. Everybody has something to say.
Yes.
And if we're not listening, we're gonna miss. It's gonna come again. We're gonna get smacked in the face again. Hey, you didn't hear that last week. You weren't listening to Caroline. Didn't you hear Caroline talk about the 1986 Act? What were you doing?
Yes.
You need to go and research that now.
Yes.
That's so important. We ought to be always filing lawsuits at this point.
Well, like I said, I honestly think, and the thing that is making mine's unique is I'm not making it about my daughter's transition and my daughter's 19 years of really struggle, which she couldn't even be a mom to her son because of her illness. So 19 years she struggled with this. It's not even about that. My whole thing, my mission is to get the 1986 Act taken down, repealed, ripped up, and thrown and burned. That act needs to be ripped up and burned. And that is my mission. So I have a different mission. It's not, and for me, it's not about money. It's not about getting money from my daughter. Nothing. Money's not going to bring her back. Money's not going to give her the 19 years that illness took from her. Okay. So what I want to get, my goal is to get that act torn up and burnt. And if I have to go to the Supreme Court to get it done, that's where I'm going. But because once that act is torn up and burned, this is what will happen. The pharmaceutical companies will stop making childhood vaccines anyway, because they have this with the whole this whole last 3 years, they have the EUA for the other one. But for the childhood vaccines, oh, sorry, try not to say that word. But for the childhood jabs, they would stop the minute they have no protection. They'll stop making them. I'm telling
So
you.
in the meantime, though, what I see we need to focus on is the holes in that act.
The other thing, no, not the holes. The whole thing needs to be torn up and burned. The other thing, there are at least 2 doctors that I know of that have proven that the unjabbed children are far healthier than the jabbed children. I will repeat that is proven. That the CDC will not do that. They will not do that study. They will, if you held a gun to the CDC head, they won't do that study because they know what it's going to show. So don't feel like, oh, well, if the pharmaceutical companies don't make these jabs, what's going to happen to our children? They'll be far healthier. It has been proven by at least 2 pediatricians that it is proven that the unjabbed children are far healthier than the jabbed children, and that's gospel.
Now, are you familiar? Are you familiar with the international lawsuit that started, I think, last year? About crimes against humanity.
Sure. Reiner, I worked with Reiner on, when I say I worked with him, I worked on a tour, which was the Crimes Against Humanity tour. And I was in touch with Reiner. So yes, I've been very active on this truth and freedom mission since day one.
So where is that at this point? Where is that lawsuit?
Actually, but the thing is, the thing about it, it hasn't gone into any real court of law.
Okay,
it's just him doing, what is it? It's like a model trial. It's real testimony from real witnesses, but it's not in any court of law. He couldn't get it in Germany. He's German, and he has a license to practice here in the US as well, but he couldn't get it in the German courts. It's not here in the courts. So that's what I'm saying. Here's what we got to do though. We have to stop waiting for others to fix our problems. Each one of us has to do what we can do. Each one of us can't wait on no politician, because they're all a part of the problem. Every one of them. I don't care what your political party is. They're all in bed with the whole pharmaceutical company, and the government are in bed, and we cannot say, okay, we're going to let them fix it. We have to fix it. We have to do what we can do. First of all, we have to educate ourselves. We have to understand. We have to see what is really happening and say no more.
Now, don't you think a part of the big part of the problem is this lobbyist system that we have? What about pulling that down along with?
Well, I'm saying once you pull down the government, seriously, once you pull down the government, there's no lobby system. Okay, the lobby system is under the government. It's the government. We the people have to take back our lives.
Yes.
Okay. We cannot wait. And this is the year 2023, a 7-year. Things are turning around. Last 3 years has been moving very slowly, making tiny progress. This is the year things are going to turn around. Trust me on that.
So what do you feel? We only have, okay, folks, if you have questions or comments for Caroline, now's the time. Okay, we do have someone who has raised their hand.
Okay.
So we go to the callers because we only have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
And after this call, I want to ask you, what do you think are the steps that we should be taking as average citizens to pull down this 1986 Act? But let me open up the phone. 312-671. Your mic is open. Welcome. We have Caroline Chang as our guest. Do you have any questions for our guest?
Thank you. Now, I want to answer your question before we are out of time.
Yeah, we got another caller too.
Well, let me answer your question. It's a very good, important answer. What each of us can do is stop complying with the lies. Educate yourself. Do your own homework. I stopped watching news in 2001. I stopped watching television in 2011. I watched movies and documentaries on Netflix and Hulu and things of that net. But I turned off the television. So what you need to do is stop listening to the lies. Do your own homework. Okay? Stop complying with the lies. Do your own homework. And that in itself will change the world.
Absolutely. Okay? Because they plan this propaganda for those people who are sitting in front of the TV.
Yes.
Let's stop that nonsense and stop being brainwashed.
Why do you think it's called television programming? Exactly. It is a CIA mind control program. It has a name. It's called Operation Mockingbird. And that was proven in the 50s.
Yes.
It was proven in the 50s that television is a CIA mind control program. That is what
people. Don't even take her word for it. Do your homework.
Yes.
Operation Mockingbird. Do your homework. We got one more caller here. And I want to say, and I think Caroline will agree, this year, let's say stop the violence with the jab. Stop the jab. Stop. It's been a violent offense on the human body. That's the war. We are at war. So if you go to Selma, get your poster ready to stop the jab. Stop the violence from the pharmaceutical industries and our government.
And we're truly living through global genocide right now. There was the true death tolls from 2020 will prove there was no pandemic. The death rate worldwide did not go up till after the jab was rolled out. That is gospel. If you do your own homework, you'll find that out.
Thank you.
There was no pandemic in 2020.
We called it a plandemic.
It's a pandemic, scamdemic, shamdemic. That's what I call it.
Speak the truth. I'm going to look forward to Higher View. I want to see you there. And I'm going to go check out Awake to One. Everybody, Awake to Oneness Radio. Any other ways that people can get in touch with you?
Well, there's awaketoonenessradio.org. You go to my website. I post blog posts. I do a lot of blog posts, 2 or 3 a week. So you can read a lot of what I shared on here is on my blog post on awaketoonenessradio.org. Or you could just type in Awake to Oneness Radio in YouTube and you'll find my YouTube channel.
Well, Caroline, I consider you one of my sisters, STARs. So I'm so grateful to have had this time with you. I just love your energy. I love those colors too on you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we'll be meeting again, I'm sure, because we got work to do. We really got work to do.
Everybody on the planet has work to do.
I'm telling you. If they're woke, otherwise go back to your CNN, whatever.
No. Everyone on the planet has work to do. We have chosen, everyone on the planet, whether they're awake or asleep, everyone on the planet chose to be here at this important time in humanity's history.
Absolutely. Thank God. So have a beautiful day, weekend, and we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Okay.
Love you, sister.
Love you. Thank you so much.
We're going to say goodbye now to our global family. Thank you, ending. Thank you all for coming in this beautiful atmosphere of truth. So much truth. I know you all go drink some water, tea, and just wash the truth down and absorb it, and then go out and act.
You can hear every show
assignment.
in the archive
Love
at
you.
www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. You can also